which you do. Well, good morning everybody. 29th of June 2018. There's been a little bit of discussion on Facebook. It's worthwhile making a video on this. It's one of those things that's sort of been sparking some ideas. Oh gee, the middle of the year already. The older you get, the faster time flies, doesn't it? Anyway, we'll get right into this. There's been a lot of controversy, and I've sort of got into this controversy myself about the extremely high fares on the Great Southern Railway. The GHAN and the Indian Pacific in particular. The overland is not quite so bad. It's only a day train. Give you a couple of examples. Now, first of all, our daughter is travelling from San Francisco to Denver on the California Zephyr in August, and it has already cost her $375 for a roomette sleeping berth and an entire cabin. Once you get a roomette by yourself, you get the whole cabin in the United States. If there's two of you, the two of you go in the cabin. That's how it works. $375, including all meals, for the 2 days and 1 night journey to Denver. And it's one of the most scenic train journeys in the United States. Now, bear that $375 in mind, please, because I rang up Great Southern Railway and I said, I want an advance purchase fare. I'm asking now at the moment. And they give you 1/3 off. They're really generous. What kind of fare can you offer me, say, for February next year to go Darwin to Alice Springs, right? Oh, they click on the computer. We can give that to you for the 6th of February for $820. And you just say, all right, okay. Well, what about Sydney to Adelaide? Oh, same day, 6th of February. I think he said $613. I said, all right, that's not too bad. I think, well, thanks, I'll talk about it, which I did. Not going to do it at the moment. Now, it doesn't mean that I won't do it sometime, but that fare is just seriously ridiculous, right? And paying $3,000, or correction, $2,999 from Sydney to Perth is ludicrous for 99% of Australians. Is that small percentage of people that will pay those kind of fares because they're quite wealthy, or they've got, you know, a lot of money in the bank with pensions? They want to keep their pension going. They'll go out and spend the money, right? So there's a handful of people, and then there's overseas tourists that quite wealthy mostly, that do the trips. Now, it is an illusion, an utter illusion, to see the GHAN, and I've been on it, by the way, in the days when they had a city car, of 30 cars and even up to 42 cars, and I've been told up to 44 cars maximum length, full of wealthy people. Now, my concept, and anyone can pass this on, if anyone's interested can raise this anywhere they like. I may do so in the Railway Digest, for example, or whatever, but is for a company to buy good quality second-hand cars from Europe. They would fit the loading gauge, and I don't mean the standard, the track gauge here, because that's obviously standard gauge, but the loading gauge is the size of the outside dimensions of the cars. Like in America, they've got big loading gauge, and Australia is pretty good. British is very small. Europe is slightly better, I think. But anyway, you get the picture there. So you buy a set. You make one set up here. 3 couchette cars. There'd be one with 6 berths and 2 with 4 berths. There'd be, you make up, if you can't, they don't have them in Europe, you may have to make up, convert a couple of sitting cars to rail bed cars like they have in Queensland, and you'd have a dining car and a lounge car, which you could get either manufactured or you have to convert. Buy some equipment if necessary. Great Southern Railway have got plenty of cars, they could sell some of them. So you could see them in a set made up of, it'd become economy class. It'd be called the Outback Explorer. That's just my name for it. and it would be based in Sydney, and it would run once a fortnight, Sydney to Perth, direct, wouldn't go via Adelaide, and once a fortnight to Darwin from Sydney. Now there'd be another train, which again made up of similar equipment, would go Melbourne to Port Augusta 3 days a week. Now the reason for that is you're providing Adelaide service, which is at economy rate instead of a first class, and overnight like the Overland used to be. There'd be no sitting cars, it'd be rail bed and couchettes plus a dining and lounge car. Or in the case of that train, it might be a snack bar lounge. It's sort of hasn't got the length of journey as Sydney Perth, Sydney Darwin. So you need 2 train sets, and I could tell you the fares would go right down. So you're looking at, I'm just making it up, you'd say, all right, one-way fare Sydney to Perth, economy class couchette, $1,200. Oh, wait a minute. $800 for a rail bed. Okay, so if it's $1,200 and your pensioners, you say, right, pensioners and seniors will allow 12 of them on each departure. Well, people rush to book in, you get exactly half price. So, the $1,200 becomes $600. The $800 becomes $400 for the journey. So who can't really afford the $400 to go Sydney to Perth on a rail bed? That means if you're not familiar with the rail bed, look it up on YouTube or on Google. It is a 2-and-1 seating. Every row gets a window, by the way, like the Shinkansen in Japan. Medium-sized window, every row gets one. No half window and full window business any longer. 2-and-1, so you've got couples on one side too, and you've got single passengers, independent travellers on the other side with a seat by the window. Incidentally, I've used that a couple of times. I'm using it a couple more times in the next few months. I picked car seat 11, car C, by the way, in the Spirit of Queensland. There's a clue for you. It's a nice seat. It's right next to the snack bar lounge, and it's quite nice. So anyway, that's what would happen. So I would suggest that, as I say, the reason is, by the way, to run that train from Melbourne to Port Augusta is you'd serve the Adelaide market with a reasonable price, very reasonable price, because your couchettes, you'd have all the backpackers and so on would get there might be a different rate for a 6-passenger couchette. It might be slightly lower, by the way, than the 4-passenger, but you'd work something out. It might be $20 a head or something. You say, right, you can go in there, right? So I'd only have one of those, and there'd be two 4-passenger couchette cars. You'd fill those in an instant, as the saying goes. And then it would be a cross-platform connection in Port Augusta for that. As I said, there's a fortnightly train to Perth and a fortnightly train to Darwin. Now what would happen is the Great Southern Railway would suddenly find itself under great competition and pressure. And after a while they'd lower the fares and lower the fares a bit more, and they'd say, oh gee, we can't really run this. Well, what would happen is they'd either get a government subsidy to run it, or the government itself would take the trains back again and run them efficiently and well, and produce them at a lower fare, but produce a good service, because it would be first class, and people would be happy to pay a reasonable fare for first class. By reasonable, I mean if you cut $1,000 off the Sydney Perth, if it was $2,000 instead of $3,000, and you say, advanced purchase, you could get a third off that anyway, as Great Southern already does. So you've got a general idea of what I'm talking about here with the trains, and I'd like to see discussion on that by people on YouTube and on Facebook, and liven things up a bit and contact various people, whether they write letters to the newspaper. I do that sort of thing from time to time, and I may do one to the Queensland Times here in Ipswich. And you write to the Railway Digest magazine, which I think I will, with the idea. Set the idea out properly, work something out. Somebody out there would have the money to invest in an affordable train for everybody. to be able to afford to travel on those wonderful long distance trips, that's the way to go. That's the way forward. So thank you for viewing.